Good morning. Today is July 22nd, 2023. My name is Greg Sperling, and I'm a volunteer at the Stratford Veterans Museum located at 5952 Main Street in Stratford, Connecticut. I'm joined today via Zoom from his home in North Carolina by retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Wayne Cox, who was born on today, July 22nd, 1949. Happy birthday. And
Yeah.
and served in the Army from October 13th, 1969 to November 1st, 1989. Sergeant First Class Cox retired after more than 20 years of service, which included service in Vietnam, where he was awarded a Bronze Star with V. Welcome. So, Wayne, tell us where did you grow up? Where were you born? And tell us a little bit about your early life.
I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Started out, lived in Fairfield for about 5 years. Then from Fairfield, we moved to Stratford, to what then was called the Wood End Homes, uh, down near Afco Lycoming, and grew up there. My parents divorced shortly after moving there, so I didn't have too much to do with my father until actually when I was in Vietnam. So he's a World War II veteran. Was at the Battle of the Bulge. Was combat engineer. I went to school at Birdseye Elementary uh, up until fourth grade. And from there, I went to St. James in Stratford, fifth grade and sixth grade. And then we moved back again to another address down in that area and went to Johnson Junior High School for seventh, eighth, and ninth. After graduating Johnson Junior, we moved up to Soundview Avenue, just off of Barnum Avenue near Franklin School, and did my sophomore, junior, and senior year in Stratford High. So graduated in '69. Worked part-time over that different periods of time. Worked for the Stratford Seafood Market a couple of days a week. Ended up working at the Cricket, which was a very popular spot in Stratford over the years.
Yes, it was.
And then I also worked when I got drafted. I was at a shoe salesman for Tom McCann in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Okay.
I was after school, get on a bus, head over to there until I got my car and work there. And one night a week, they were open late downtown in Bridgeport. It was on Thursday nights. And so I met my wife in high school, went together for 3 years in high school together, graduated in June of '69. And we got married in July of '69, July 19th, just celebrated our 54th.
Congratulations.
Um, went on the honeymoon, back from the honeymoon, my draft notice was in the mailbox.
Oh,
I was on So it wasn't long after we got married that I was on active duty. So I went in on 13 October '69. Went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for basic training, and I was in basic 2 weeks, and I got really sick. And so I said, this is I'm not going on a sick call. So, but my drill sergeant took me himself to the hospital. They admitted me to the hospital with double pneumonia.
Mm.
Spent 30 days at the hospital at Fort Dix getting over double pneumonia. Then they sent me home on convalescent leave for 30 days. Now I'm only a 2-year draftee, and that's 60 days right there, plus a couple of weeks in basic. And after I come back on convalescent leave, which is about the 2nd of January, 70, started basic over again.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm just glad I was only in 2 weeks before that happened.
Yes, sir.
So, finished basic and no leave in between going to my advanced training. And so put you on buses and right out the back gate of Fort Dix to McGuire Air Force Base, which is right next door. And so we got on the buses there, got on the planes, flew down to Fort Polk, Louisiana. Great place. Absolutely fantastic place. So you note the sarcasm in my voice.
I can.
um, so I was light weapons infantry. When you get drafted, you don't really get to pick what field you want to go into. Now, when I did get inducted in the military, I had to meet at the train station in Bridgeport. They put you on a train, take you over to New Haven to the induction station, go through a few different things there. They check out this, check out that, make sure you're okay, no flat feet, whatnot. And then you're in a room, and a staff sergeant, Army comes in with a staff sergeant from the Marines. It's about 30 of us in the room. Says, well, today, gentlemen, we're inducting into the Marine Corps. And just at random, picked 8 guys out of the 30. Says, you're in the Marines now. They didn't have their own draft, so they picked what was, the guys that were drafted. So
Right.
So it was a possibility I could have ended up in the Marines. So I started basic over again in January 2nd, 70. Went through the regular courses for, the military etiquette, drill and ceremony, all that kind of stuff, and weapons qualification, and run, and run. um, so after basic, on AIT, finished that around the 15th of April 70. But I had 2 weeks before we all graduated, the whole battalion, we had orders for Germany. I said, man, that's great because I'm only a 2-year draftee. I don't have another year and a half maybe, and I'd be out, do my reserve time.
Right.
But so I call home, tell the wife, going to Germany, which she was elated. So 3 days before I graduated, they rescinded our orders and made everybody go into Vietnam.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was. So customary, they usually give 30 days leave before you go overseas like that. 15 days leave, that was it. So I didn't have the heart to tell her on the phone that I would change my orders to Vietnam. I had to wait till I got home. I just couldn't do it on the phone. I had to be there. So I told her, and her brother was a Marine and had been in Vietnam. So, knew kind of what kind of expecting. I'm not sure, a whole new field for me. So after my 15 days, reported out to Travis Air Force Base in California, and they put you on a plane, commercial flight, usually charters, Tiger Airlines, some of these off-brand names,
Mm-hmm.
and they flew from Travis Air Force Base, California, to Alaska, Anchorage, then from Alaska to Hawaii, and from Hawaii to Guam. Kind of leapfrogged across the Pacific, and then from Guam into Vietnam, into Bien Hoa, which is probably about 40 kilometers north of Saigon.
Okay.
I'm sitting up in the front of the airplane. Matter of fact, there's nothing in front of me but kind of that wall, little extra leg space, but it was, and regular stewardesses and stuff, and parked the plane. Door opens up. My gosh, the whoosh of hot air coming into that plane hits you right in the face, and the smell is just so much different. Well, an MP comes on and says, gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the Republic of Vietnam. If we should come under rocket or mortar attack on the way into the building, please uh, proceed into the building and lay flat down on the floor. So we start going off the plane, and I'm one of the first ones out of the plane down the ramp and into the building. And you walk into the building, and this roar lets out of all these guys because that's their freedom bird. They're going home. They're pointing to me saying, "Man, there's my replacement." That makes you really feel, uh, not real tall, And it says, "Oh boy, I got a year to go, and they're going home." So to get us all into the building, and says, "Okay, we're loading you up on buses. You're going over to the 90th replacement in Long Bend, which is kind of adjacent to Benoit Air Base right there. You just have to go through Benoit Village on the main road." So they load us up in buses, and they got a Jeep in between each bus with three MPs in it, and one of them manning an M60 in the back in each bus, each Jeep. And the buses have these screens on them. One of the guys said, "What are these screens for?" He says, "Those are RPG screens." RPG screens. Yeah, they're to stop a rocket propelled grenade from going into the bus. It'll detonate by the window, but it won't go into the bus. That made you feel a whole lot better too. So buses all take off, Jeep in between each one, front and back. And you're going through the village. It's pitch black. It's night. And you're zooming through the village. I couldn't believe it, Come out the other side onto the main highway and cross that and go into the 90th replacement station. And once you're at the 90th replacement, you said you're gonna be there anywhere from 1 to 3 days before we assign you to a unit. So I says, okay, so we have 2 formations a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Your name's called, you'll get a unit. Otherwise, you just hang tight and wait. On my so we're they put these in these barracks. It's just trying to get acclimated, right away from the heat is just unbelievable. It's just the humidity is 120%. So first meeting next day, formation, no name called. Afternoon meeting, no name called. Next day, formation in the morning, no name called. This is, oh boy. And guys are being called for different units and stuff, but there's still a bunch of us there.
Right.
So the afternoon, my name gets called. You go into the 1st Cavalry Division. And I knew what the 1st Cavalry Division was. It's kind of hard to miss that big patch of theirs,
Yes.
And so they put you on another bus. They take you back over to Benoit, because Benoit was actually the headquarters for the 1st Cav Division. When they moved down south, they were up north to begin with, and they moved south. So headquarters was in Benoit. And we went to the FTA Academy, which was the first team academy. That's what they called the 1st Cav, the first team. You get over there, they put you in a tent, cot, and that kind of stuff. And it says, you guys are going to be here for a couple of days. So we get over there late, get something to eat, bed down. And way off in the distance, man, you can see flashes and you can hear like big rounds hitting the ground, So, it's just, and you're way off. You can see the flashes way off in the distance. But, so you're there for 2 days. And the first day, what they do is they take you out to the range to fire the M16, the M79, which is a grenade launcher. It breaks open like a shotgun, fires a 40 millimeter grenade round. And the M60, the 45, setting up a claymore, grenades. Second day, like we could forget in 15 days how to use those weapons that you just finished 8 weeks of training in Fort Polk,
Right.
And next day, we peel off a tower, learn how to setting up the claymore for ambushes. And then you also, the next big thing was you had to climb down a ladder off of a hovering Chinook. And if you're familiar with a Chinook, it's a double rotor engine helicopter, kind of the workhorse for the Cav. And so that was interesting to do that. Next day, got assignment. Got assigned to 2nd of the 12th Cav fire support base buttons in a place called Song Bay, SONG and then BE. So there was a bunch of us that got there. Now we're talking, it's probably 12th, 13th of May now. And we knew what was going on because as of the 1st of May, Operation Sanctuary took place where American troops, 1st CAD Division, 25th Infantry Division, 4th and elements of 11th Armor, and a number of other units, crossed into Cambodia to put a stop to some of the, because they used to hit us and then just run right across the border. And of course, we couldn't go into Cambodia at that time.
Right.
But President Nixon authorized us to go, so we went. We were only going to be there 2 months. So here's the 12th. They're already there. So they fly us up to Song Bay. It's got an airstrip. Song Bay was one of the fire base buttons, was one of the largest fire bases, or one of the largest fire bases in 3 Corps in Vietnam. So we're talking major units. The whole 2nd Brigade was there. Aviation outfits, Air Force units, Red Hatters, riggers. I mean, artillery units. You figure there's about 2,000 guys on this place.
Mm-hmm.
So we fly up there on a C-123. It lands at the airstrip. Guy comes out there to meet us in a Jeep and an Army mule, throw our gear on there and head us back in. Most of the brigade is already gone because 2nd of the 12th was one of the main units going into Cambodia. So there's 4 newbies here. Of course, you can always spot the newbies. Brand new fatigues, you know.
Right.
Scared looks on their faces. And we check in, get processed a few things we had to do. And the acting first sergeant comes out and says, okay, I need you to go to supply, draw your equipment. E6 there will show you how to put it all together. Then you're going to go draw a weapon and ammunition. At 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, you're going to be out at the airfield. There's a couple of resupply choppers going in. You're going to get on them. And you're going into Cambodia to be with your unit. I've been in Vietnam like 5 days, you know.
Yes.
And but I mean, I learned, you know, if you weren't scared, you were stupid, you know. So got our gear. E6 shows us how to put it all together. You know, you got a pistol belt, you got your rucksack loaded in there, you get a claymore, a couple of hand grenades. I didn't get a hand grenade because I didn't get an M16. I got an M79, which to me was fine. Of course, and then they give me 30 rounds of 40 millimeter grenade, high explosive ones, shotguns, a couple of CS, and a couple of smoke, a couple of illumination, and a couple of what they call flechette rounds. And a flechette round has 40 little steel darts inside of it that you fire out of this thing. And you just break it open, you drop it in like a shotgun, you know, and you fire it. The pattern just spreads out. They're illegal for use now. You can't use them in warfare right now. But at that time, they not only had them in the M79s, but they also had a beehive round for the 105 howitzers.
Mm-hmm.
They look like little nails with little fins on them for stabilization. So I got that, and got 4 canteens. And believe me, you're going to need every drop that you can get. The majority of guys carried 4 canteens. Some even carried 5. Got 3 days worth of rations. They showed you break the box down, take the cans, drop them into a empty sock, and tie it on the back of your rucksack. So you got a claymore, got a few grenades. Besides the 79, I was also issued a sidearm of 45. So I got 6 clips for that, 30 rounds for that, for the 79. Got your pack. After you load everything there, leave all the stuff you don't need behind. Thing's about 60 pounds when you put everything on. And plus you got your steel pot. And one of the indispensable things was an OD green towel for around your neck because you're going to need it. So at 7 o'clock in the morning out there at the airfield, a couple choppers come in. They loaded up with some of the supplies they need to, ammo, rations, whatever. And off we go because Song Bay was only 6 clicks from the Cambodian border. It's kind of set up to be a blocking place for infiltration routes. So, in being so big, the 105s and the 10 and 155 howitzers had a big coverage area to take care of things. So they fly us into the kind of leapfrogged in. One stopped at LZ Brown, refueled, spent a couple hours in there, and then from there into Cambodia, and you hook up to your unit. And here you are, brand new green fatigues and boots. And these guys that got fatigues on and boots, they have this orange tint to them, which I would find out later on because Song Bay was in the summer, it was orange powder. In the rainy season, it was orange ooze, and it got into everything. You couldn't get away from it, right down to the food you ate. So I was assigned to my squad. I was in third squad. They needed a grenadier. The other guys got parceled out to other things right there. They, of course, always looking for new guys. And they had a term for them. We were called FNGs, and I'll have you can figure out what the F stood for. There's new guys. And that's what we were. So, I mean, you learn to keep your mouth shut and learn from these guys that have already been there.
Right.
So the Sergeant E5 kind of took me under his wing and that kind of stuff, which I was glad of that. Sergeant DeMarco was his name, from New Mexico. The guys come from all walks of life, all over the country. So it's, you find somebody that maybe from your state or something, that's cool. So we were in Cambodia, and I was over there from the 15th of May, and we had to be out by the 28th, 29th of June. I mean, a timetable. 2nd Brigade, which I was part of, found a big cache of weapons, supplies, and it was called Rock Island East, kind of nicknamed after Rock Island Arsenal.
Right.
In the States. And you're talking, this was a built up place, bamboo sidewalks, classrooms, warehouses, vehicles, pallets under, of rice. You're talking like 10, 15 tons of rice. We found this cache. I mean, and weapons, unbelievable. Brand new AK-47, still in oilcloth. Russian carbines, SKSs, brand new. Millions of rounds of ammunition of different types. 7.62, crew-served weapon, machine gun ammunition, grenades. I mean, it's just unbelievable. One of the biggest things we found too was 487 122 rockets that they used to fire. That's the biggest thing they got in their arsenal. It's about 6 foot long, got 17 pounds of explosives in the head of it. They used to set them up in the field like on just a bamboo tripod. And that was kind of their guidance system. They just put it the way they wanted it to point, and then they just stick a big can down there, put water into it, poke a little hole at the bottom, and run the line from it to a cork in the water, and a line stretched across to a little battery. And when the water runs out, they're not even round. The water runs out, cork goes down, the two wires touch, and it takes off by itself.
Mm.
So you find the things afterwards. So they're pretty really indiscriminate. They're not fired like a mortar round or an artillery round. Which um, there's a lot going into it when they fire it. They pretty know much where it's going to go. Um, so we found all that there too. One of the other cav units found another place called the City, which was even bigger than the one we found. They found a whole motor pool, still vehicles, cars, trucks, motorcycles, hundreds of bicycles. I mean, it was more you're spending after you found it. You're starting to sling stuff out, a lot of the weapons and that kind of stuff. The engineers cut a road into us. They brought trucks in to load this stuff onto. So we're loading this stuff, day after day. At night, you just pull back from the thing, go into a night defensive position, and next day you go back to doing the same thing again. You set up night ambushes, automatic ones. So anytime Charlie comes around, usually it's a claymore set up or grenades in cups, and they get pulled out, and the pin's already pulled, but the cup holds it the handle on, and it gets pulled up by a tripwire. Handle flies off, makes a contact. So it's an automatic. You don't have to be there.
Right.
Um, there was a couple times they came back at night. You can see flashlights actually in the doggone jungle, but you're not firing. You're not giving away your position where you were for your night defensive position. So, um, squads usually had about 12 guys. We were working in more or less company strength at that time. So you're talking about about 112 guys in different squads and stuff. A few officers. Colonel for our brigade was Colonel Ayani, good guy. So we spent most of our time just slinging stuff out. What couldn't be slung out, they brought in EOD guys in with C4 cases of it, set everything up to blow, so it couldn't be used. Um, when I say finding strange things at these things, one of the other units, if they found a cache of weapons, one of the weapons they found was you find Springfields in some of these things. It's just a lot of different weapons collected from all over the place that they bring down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. One of the other companies found a 38 revolver, and on the butt plate was stamped NYPD. So I mean, just lots of different strange things, really. So I says, we lost a few guys. Um, We lost one guy on the 18th and another one on the 2nd from my squad on the 2nd of June. Uh, so we pulled out. Everybody had to be out of Cambodia by the 28th, 29th of June. So everybody that went in had to get out and bring everything they could with them. Everything else was going to be blown in place. So we got out. It was a it was a good operation. It was a big operation. And that was really my baptism, fire and everything, just be thrown into the monkey works, the whole thing. Um, and to say that you're not scared, you are, and if you're not, it's something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sights, sounds you have to get used to and whatnot there. So we come out of Cambodia, choppers all back to Firebase Buttons, stand down for a few days, kind of unwind after action reports are done. The only thing you're really doing is just kind of resting a little bit, catching up on some sleep. And that was sleep was always something you looked forward to and trying to get. Um, we you pull security on the berm and the bunkers and stuff. But on and off, you're not there every night, so which makes it okay, and the berm is heavily fortified. bunkers dotted about every 30 feet, and in between those there's a foxhole for guys too. Um, the wires out there, claymores are set up. In some places, even had what they call fugas. And fugas was a 55-gallon drum of jelly JP4 jet fuel. They put a charge underneath it, and the charges all run back to the bunker themselves. You had clackers there for the claymores. Trip flares are out there. The fugas is if you come under a ground attack, all you have to do is hit one of those things right there, and 55 gallons of JP4 jelly jet fuel goes up. And that goes over all over the place, you
Right.
know. And your claymores and stuff. You always carried a claymore with you anyway. You had it in your bag, in your pack, because when you set up at night, everybody set out a claymore because you're set up like in a wagon wheel type formation,
Mhm.
feet in, everybody facing out. And you're very rarely, I can only remember one time that you stayed in the same night defensive position more than one night.
Right.
You move around. Um, you follow trails, you look for different things. Then we started picking up, um, doing patrolling, clear and search. We had to change it from clearance to clear and search because the public didn't like clear and destroy, you know. So that had to be changed to clear and search. So um, it started that time. I mean, it really, you know, especially after Cambodia, a lot of units were pulling out that time. They were doing a lot of stand downs, and units were going back to the States. Cav was still there, going pretty good. The So we were running patrols. You'd go out sometimes 5, 6, 8 days. Every 4 days, you get resupplied. Um, you'd get it water. If you didn't have water, you'd have to get it from streams, put in iodine tablets, and that just made the water taste that much worse. So, but there's a lot of guys, they had Kool-Aid packets sent from home, dumped the Kool-Aid into the thing there, which made it a lot more palatable. Um, so we run a lot of patrols and that kind of stuff, and you come back in and stay down for 3, 4 days, and you go back out. It's kind of a cycle. A couple of squads go out one time, another couple of squads will be back, and then they'd switch back and forth and stuff. Because you had 4 companies in that brigade, not including the headquarters company. Plus, you had right next to us was a mountain called Nui Ra. Had an LZ on top of it, a couple thousand feet. Had a special forces camp on the other side, and there was rumor that there was on the other side of the mountain they had a CIA camp. Never could check that out. But it kind of towered over Song Bay, and so we held the top. It had an LZ on top of it. But Charlie still tried going in between the mountain and where we had troops and stuff. Um, the bridge over near Song Bay was hotly contested throughout the whole time I was there. Which was it was getting blown. So they ended up finally having permanent guards on the bridge. You could see the Benoit village from Song Bay. Uh, Pretty good sized village. And once in a while, you get a chance to go into it, maybe do a little bit of local shopping, a couple of trinkets, that kind of stuff. Um, Come July, we had an operation, and we had lost a couple guys here and there at different times, wounded, and getting new guys in. And you would get new guys in, and I felt like an old guy. I've been there 3 months now. um, we got pretty close to another guy that I was friends with and stuff. And July 28th, he was hit and killed. He, I play it back in my mind a lot of times about, could I have done more? Could we all have done more when he got hit? But it's something that happened, but it really hit me hard, you know. So after that, a couple different things were going on, that kind of stuff. We had a dog in the platoon. His name was Sam Doberman. Uh, Got pretty close to me. I was, I kind of was the one that fed him all the time, gave him his water and that kind of stuff. He'd go on a few patrols with us and stuff. Most of the time, he'd be back within the perimeter. But he was good out on patrols because, I mean, his nose could pick up a lot of stuff that we didn't right away. Um, but after my buddy got killed, it just it changed a lot of things. Maybe thinking about this and thinking about that. Uh, I still went on patrols and that kind of stuff, but I didn't think I was as sharp as I was to begin with, and I didn't want to start feeling getting careless. Excuse me. So, so still run patrols and that kind of stuff, and still back to security, back at the post, back at the base. In September, I started talking with the chaplain and that kind of stuff about, how my feelings were and whatnot. Uh, and it had to come down to what I wanted to do, continue on the way I was going, constantly worrying about, was I doing this right? Was I doing that right? Did I do something wrong? So I ended up talking to a reenlistment sergeant, and I reenlisted for another MOS and kept my infantry as a secondary MOS, but they were looking for some supply guys and stuff. So I reenlisted for 3 years. I still had another uh, year or more to go on my draft, so it was only a couple more years added on at the time, I thought. Went to got assigned to a place called Lai, which was about 30 kilometers south of where I was at Song Bay, and about 45 kilometers north of Saigon, kind of in the middle. Highway 1 ran right through it. It's a rubber plantation. A couple of units there, big units. 227th Aviation. They had about 20 UE helicopters. We call them slicks, UEs, regular transport helicopters. They had a couple of Chinooks. They had 12 Cobras, though, and a Cobra is a two-seater attack helicopter. The Marines used them for years after Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I ended up being assigned to the 15th S&S Battalion, which was 1st Cav Division still. I never left the 1st Cav. So they sent me to Lai, this place here, and it was 3 other guys there and myself. So it was only 4 guys, and we ran the Class 1 point for all of Lai, all the units that were stationed there. Class 1 had everything to do with your rations. A rations are all your perishables. B rations are all your canned goods, and of course C rations are your regular food rations, which has changed over now to MREs. So I got into that job, and I was a Spec 4 at the time. There was 2 other Spec 4s and an E5, just the 4 of us, kind of on our own, really. We weren't attached to anybody there. I mean, we could go to one of the companies and have our meals if we wanted to, but you got to figure, we're in a Class 1 yard. We issue all the food.
Yes.
So we had refrigeration units for produce, refrigeration units for all your frozen goods, and a yard full of pallets of B rations. Excuse me. So the E5 that we had, he was with the 1st Division, and the 1st Division was at Lai before we took it over. But 1st Division went home. They stood down from Vietnam, but he had like 6 months left, so he couldn't go back. If he had like 4 months, they would have sent him back and probably ETS and get out. But he had 6 months left, so he just went over to the 1st Cav, and so he was there at E5. He wasn't even Class 1, but the other Spec Fours were pretty knowledgeable on what was going on and stuff. We had a couple of civilian personnel that would come in. People call them mama sons, but they were older mama sons. I mean, they were in their 50s and 60s. Some of them. They had a couple of them that worked the yard, cleaning up stuff after we'd have an issue or something like that. Take your fatigues with them when they leave, bring them back in a couple of days, all cleaned up and stuff. The only problem with that was if anybody in Vietnam could tell that you were like, hey, no matter where you went, because when your uniforms were brought back to you, they had a different color green to them when they washed them, almost like a Kelly green instead of an OD green. So it was definitely, you walk someplace with guys that weren't at like, hey, you kind of stood out, because you had slightly different colored uniforms. But they actually did cooking for us too. So I mean, so it was easy. You want, okay, let's have some fried chicken. We go to the cooler and get some chicken and some. They cook it up with vegetables and whatnot there. Great food. We had no problem. We wanted some fresh fruit. We go out there, we get fresh fruit. We were not wanting for anything. And if you even wanted a sea ration, heaven forbid, they had those too, because we issued those out of there too. We even had pallets of dog food for some of the scout dog platoon. Now, the dog that I had up at Song Bay, Sam, when I left, they let me take the dog with me. I had the dog for the rest of the time I was in Vietnam. And that was great because Sam, did whatever I told him to do. He was really good. And at night, we just pull the barbed wire across our entranceway. You're in the middle of the compound, so it's huge. Across the street was just, I say street, just a dirt path there, was the 227th Aviation. That's the head when they had all the choppers and stuff. And so we just pulled the thing across there. We had our weapons and stuff. And never had to use them there at like A. So we also issued what they call sundry packs to troops. And a sundry pack is a one box. What it has in it has 100 candy bars in it, 100 packs of cigarettes, 10 pair of bootlaces, some pens, and some pads. And what it is for, it's supposed to be issued for 100 men for one day that are not able to get to like a commissary or a PX or something like that. So over a period of time, everybody'd have a pen, everybody'd have extra bootlaces and that kind of stuff. We issued those to guys, and we had access to them too. And I didn't smoke at that time too. C rations came with a pack of cigarettes in them, just a 3-pack or 4-pack. But I'd always swapped when I was back at Song Bay. I always swapped my cigarettes and stuff because I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, So we issued that kind of stuff. So I was there for probably about a month and a half, and when I reenlisted, they said I had a 30-day reenlistment leave. I says, really? I wasn't expecting that. So I decided to take it. I got a ride from a helicopter into Benoit, where the company actually was, our headquarters, and did my paperwork and says, and see, they don't pay for your reenlistment leave. That's on you.
Right.
So I had to get from Vietnam home to Stratford. So what I do is you go over to the Air Force Base at Benoit, right there, where all the planes come in. Go in, sign up, and if they have a spot, you're on Space A. You're kind of at the bottom of the thing there. Emergency leaves are ahead of you. Guys that are, leaving are ahead of you. You're kind of at the bottom. So I spent a total of 2 days just sitting around in the terminal. A couple of other guys were in the same boat I was in. Played a lot of cards, sleeping in chairs. Finally got a flight and flew from there to Travis Air Force Base. And I had to get from Travis Air Force Base to the East Coast. So I put my name down there and got on a flight from Travis Air Force Base to McGuire, which was great for me. Got off of McGuire, and I didn't even tell the wife I was coming. I got a bus out of McGuire to the Port Authority in New York, and I went from the Port Authority in New York over to Penn Station and grabbed a train from there to Bridgeport, and grabbed a cab at Bridgeport to Stratford. I get up there, get up on the front porch. The door was locked. I knock on the door. Gail kind of woke her up, and come to the front door. What are you doing home? You thought I went AWOL or something, And got in, told her what was going on and everything else, and she kind of understood. She knew we had together. We knew what each was thinking a lot of times. So I spent 30 days home on reenlistment leave. I was home for Thanksgiving. I got her a new car. We had a 62 Falcon. That was my first car. What a bomb. And so I got her a new car when I was home. I got a 65 Mustang convertible, which was nice.
Yeah.
Of course, being home too, everybody wants to see you when you're home. So, but when I was in Vietnam, my wife kind of hooked up with my father. He had been remarried after got divorced when I was a kid and had kids of his own, family and whatnot there, but he lived in Bridgeport. And Gail would go over there and see him. Sometimes she'd spend the night, she'd go over there for dinner and stuff. So she kind of reconnected, and I kind of reconnected a bit with him too. So, but the 30 days came and went. So here I I did it in reverse order again. Cab to she'd take me to the train station with my brother. I have two brothers. Had two brothers, one older and one younger. Neither one of them got drafted. My older brother was only 13 months difference between us. His birthday was June 22nd. Mine was July 22nd. And but he had rheumatic fever when he was a kid, so he had a bad heart from the get go. And my younger brother, was 2 years difference between us, he didn't get drafted. He had a bad leg. So I'm just lucky one, I guess. I went to the train station, got my train. Went to Port Authority, got the bus to McGuire, and then again signed up for McGuire to go to Travis, which got a flight pretty quickly. Going up to the east and west coast. A lot of flights were going back and forth during Vietnam. It wasn't too hard. Some guys waited 5-6 days. I didn't want to start burning 5-6 days in a terminal. And the cost of a flight was just out of the reach for me at the time, being just a Spec 4. So I got out to Travis, said, I'm going back to Vietnam. Said, okay, they got me on a flight. Flew back to Vietnam, got back to Lai Kay. Spent December, and in January, got sick. Went over to sick call. And the captain over there at the medics was looking at me, and my temperature was up to 103. Says, we're gonna take you to another place to, because we can't handle it here. They put me on IVs and stuff, and to drive me to, it would take too long. So when they put me on a chopper there to fly me to the 12th Evac at the Cu Chi 25th Infantry Division Hospital, which wasn't that far, when they put me on a helicopter, my temperature was 105. So they got me there, got me to the hospital. Oh my gosh, into the ward, and it was air conditioned. So spent 8 days at the 12th Evac Hospital. and they labeled it as fever, unknown origin, FUO, and never said that it was malaria, which a lot of guys got, even though we took these pills weekly basis. A lot of times they get you information for you to take these pills. And so we spent 8 days there. Good to go. Then me back to my unit at like, hey, February rolls around. And I'm really learning a lot on the class 1 side of the house. We had a number of units drawing rations 3 times a week. Saturdays and Sundays were ours, just catch up on sleep, really. At February rolls around, I had my R&R coming up. And I had been in contact with Gail with letters and stuff. We didn't have Skype. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. So I put in for my R&R, and I was going to Hawaii. And Gail was working 2 jobs. She was working at Howlands in Bridgeport, and then she was working at another job over at the mall in Bridgeport at the time too, saving up money. So we had pretty much everything set to go and everything. And so the first week of February, I flew from Vietnam and Tan Son Nhut, that's where most of the flights went out of for R&R. That's next to Saigon. So you get your change over any of your military payment certificates to regular cash, and change into civilian clothes and put your other stuff in a box, because you're going to come back to the same spot when you can finish with your R&R, and your clothes will all be there labeled and everything. So I flew from Tan Son Nhut to Hawaii. She had flown in from JFK, nonstop flight from JFK to Hawaii. She got there the day before I did. So she met me at the airport, which a number of the guys' wives did. If you were married, you most likely went to Hawaii. And so really that was kind of our our honeymoon. Because the honeymoon we had before was after when we got married, we went to Asbury Park, New Jersey. We were heading down to Atlantic City, but the weather was so bad. Remember, they landed on the moon on the 20th. That messed everything up. So we just got as far as Asbury Park. So this was really kind of our honeymoon. So we got to Hawaii, and we spent a week in Hawaii, which was absolutely great. We rented a car, drove around the whole island. Hotel we had was great. The restaurants were great. The food was great. And then the bad part came after that was that, go out to the airport right there. Her flight was leaving later in the day. Mine was going earlier. So we had to part there again. I was going back to Vietnam and finish my tour, and she was going home.
Oh.
Yeah. And all this, I spent my first anniversary in Vietnam. So it was, so after my R&R, went back to Lai Kay, was there for the rest of February and March. Then they were closing down the Class 1 point because CAV was getting ready to stand down. They were leaving Vietnam and going to go to their new home, which was going to be Fort Hood, Texas. Back to Benoit, worked in the Class 1 yard there for a bit, got picked for the color guard for the CAV. And so they took me out of the unit, and they all put us under one umbrella, which was HHC, first CAV for this. There was about 115 of us all together for the color guard. We practiced. We slept in a different place completely away from the companies that I was. We were authorized to carry back 2 sets of jungle fatigues, pistol belt, helmet with liner and cover, and 2 pair of boots. Time came for us to leave Vietnam, and we flew out of Benoit, but we didn't fly on commercial flights. They put the 115 of us on 2 C-141 Air Force jets. We go into the bay, and sit along the walls and canvas seats. And here it is, a trip from Vietnam on a C-141. It's an adventure. Flew into Fort Hood, Texas, and most of us had orders after we finished our color guard ceremony. They turned the colors into Fort Hood, and that was going to be the new home of the 1st Cav Division. Most of us had orders after we finished that. Once we finished the color guard ceremony, we were free to go. I picked up all our stuff. I had a weapon I bought back from Vietnam. I had a Russian carbine, an SKS 7.62. So I had to get that out of the arms room, and I had it in the case. So I got that, got all our stuff. We had chartered a bus because most of us were going to Dallas to catch flights to different places. So got on the bus, went to Dallas, got on the flight. I was flying into JFK with a stop in Newark. And so flying into Newark, plane gets struck by lightning. I said, "You got to be kidding me now." Plane landed okay. We were not a problem. We're on the ground for about an hour and a half. Gail's already with my sister-in-law at JFK waiting for me. The pilot had my rifle up in the up in the cockpit with him. This was before we had all these terrorist hijackings and stuff, but he kept it up there for me. Got off the plane, got the rifle from him, thanked me for my service and whatnot there, and went to get my luggage. No luggage. Couldn't find it. This is great. This is great. Sometimes if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any at all, So I get out into the terminal. Gail meets me. It was great, My sister drove, went back to Connecticut. All I had with me was clothes on my back and my rifle. I get to Connecticut and Stratford, settled in. Next day, a guy knocked us on the door. The baggage handlers from JFK, they found my bag. This is great. So I had my new orders in the bag. I had orders for the 561st Combat Support Company at Fort Lee, Virginia. I had 45 days leave when I came back to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to treasure every day of it. I didn't want to go to the 561st Combat Support Company, Fort Lee. I wanted to play someplace closer to home. It was only a Spec 4. So while we were on leave, my wife and I drove down to the Pentagon. Went to the Pentagon, went into personnel right there, talked to the guy, says, "Look, man, I'm class 1. I'd like to go, be someplace closer to home, Fort Dix, Fort Hamilton, New York, Fort Devens. Said, let me see what I can do." Now, he didn't give me a phone number to call him, He come back in about 20 minutes. He says, "Okay, I got an IBM card right here. I'm cutting you new orders. You're going to Fort Devens." I says, "Great,"
Yeah.
So they took my took my other orders away, rescinded those, cut new orders for me, and we were all fat and happy and going. So we've been back to Connecticut via New York because I visited my grandparents had moved up to New York, up in Rock Hill, so we visited them, and then went back to Stratford and took the rest of my leave and stuff, and then says I was going to Fort Devens, the 278 General Supply Company, and their main mission was to support with Class 1, me again, and other items for the Army Security Agency School, which was like an AIT for guys at Fort Devens, and 10th Special Forces, 10th Group was also at Devens. So we supported them. Now, this is 71, Spec 4. And so get to Devens, situated. Devens is nice. Not a big post and not a real small post, but it was nice. It was really a nice post. So So I played sports for the company team. I was playing softball, and I was playing center field. Guy hit the ball up there. I go to jump, pick it up. I got the ball, but when it came down, my leg landed in a hole. Man, I'm telling you, they said they could hear it at home plate. I tore the cartilage in my knee, which doesn't sound big nowadays, but back then, went to the hospital next day and everything else. A few days later, Major says, we're going to have to do surgery on it. And back then, see, now when you have arthroscopic surgery, they just make a little incision, take out your cartilage, and you're on your way, you know? Back then, they opened it up a full half moon on your knee, 80 stitches. So I had surgery at the hospital. You know, I was still doing my job and stuff. I had casts from my ankle to my hip. Gail was pregnant at the time. So I extended so she could have the baby in the service. And being on medical hold and extension and stuff like this, man, before you knew it, I had 5 years in. I was E5 now. 10 months after they had the first operation, they had to go back in again. They went right back over the railroad tracks they first put down, and they realigned my knee. So, I dealt with that after that. Still could do my job, not a problem. And so I was at Devon's from 71 to 77, 6 years without a move. I re-enlisted again at Devon's. In 75, Vietnam fell in April. Well, 75, late 75, September, October, we got tasked to go to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, Class 1, to support the refugees from Vietnam. 20,000 of them. 17 dining facilities. Spent 2 months at Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, convoyed up there with reefer vans, stake bed trucks. There was about a dozen of us were picked. They still had to run the Class 1 operation at Fort Devon, so not everybody went, you know. But I got in to go. I was E5 at the time, and had a couple E5s and stuff. So we spent 2 months up in Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, supporting the refugees 3 days a week. I mean, he had an 18-wheeler open bed truck that had nothing on it but rice. The other vehicle, the reefer vans, one had produce in it, another one had frozen foods and stuff like that. Items that they're used to eating and we're not. They had special things right there. They brought in cooks to run the dining facility that could cater to their particular dietary needs and stuff. So 2 months we did that. And then we got finished with that and back to Devon's again. And got the Humanitarian Service Medal for doing that operation. So I'm back at Devon's, and about 6 months after I got back to Devon's from that, I made E6. So 77 rolls around, and I get orders for Germany. I says, okay, I got a lot of good stories about Germany. I've got a son by now, and my wife and I. And I'm authorized to take my vehicle to Germany with me, because I'm an E5. And at that time, in 76, I bought a new vehicle, traded the Mustang in, and got a 1976 Dodge Street van, fully customized. Yellow paint job with striping on it and everything else. Inside, all carpet, table, bench seats, bucket seats in the front, refrigerator and whatnot. I had just gotten that, and then I came down with my orders. So it wasn't a big deal. I can ship it. So we cleared quarters and had to go to McGuire Air Force Base to fly over to bring commercial flights in and stuff. But also drop my vehicle off at Bayonne, New Jersey, and I wouldn't see it again until I got my license in Germany. And it comes in Bremerhaven in Germany. That's where all the vehicles come in by boat. So get to Germany, take the test. There's 100 street signs you have to memorize for Germany. Oh my gosh. It's um, got assigned to USMCAD, which was the United States Army Military Activity Community Darmstadt, which is oh, about 40 miles south of Frankfurt and Rhein-Main Air Base. And I was there with another E6, and the rest of it was all civilians, German civilians. We had a cold storage warehouse and a dry storage warehouse, and they were each run by um, a German national. And German nationals, we didn't have any other military besides the couple of us. So that's what I did we did a couple of what they call reforgers. And reforgers is when U.S. sends troops back to Germany for operations in case of hostilities, that they're all trained to do what they have to do. So we supported all that stuff with Reforger and whatnot a couple different times over the years, because they usually do every couple of years. So I was there from 77 to 80. It was good. We took advantage. We traveled while we were there too. We were 6 hours to Switzerland, 5 hours to Paris. Loved Austria. So it was nice. We had friends that were in the Air Force, and the second time went over, he was stationed in Denmark. He was a major. So we took the train up to Denmark and visited them on the Black Sea. It was nice. But we took advantage of the traveling. People save up all their lives for 2 weeks. We were there for 3 years.
Nice.
Another thing that happened while we were there too, before we came back, was that we adopted our daughter in Germany. She's an American child. It's a service called the International Social Service. It's set up for Americans to adopt American children. Now, the mother and father were just dependents. They were, 15 years old each, of other E6s and stuff and over there. So it was 8 weeks old when we got her. Now, to finalize my adoption, I had 6 months left on my tour for 3 years, because that's when you go for 3. I had 6 months left when I could have finalized the adoption back in the States, but that would have taken over a year. So I put paperwork in to extend my tour 6 months in Germany to finalize it there and be done with it. So I did. I finalized it, and we came back. I had orders for Fort Devens again, same company, which was fine with me. So back to Fort Devens again. Spent 3 more years there. I made E7 at Devens. So I made E5, E6, and E7 all at Fort Devens. So stayed there for another 3 years, same company, doing the same things I was doing before. We had a cold storage warehouse and a dry storage warehouse, and supported all the units in Fort Devens. So then I got orders during that time too. After I made E7, I got selected for the advanced course. And usually advanced courses, when you make E7, you go to a course for your MOS field. And so I ended up going to Fort Lee, Virginia, because that's where all your supply logistics stuff comes out of. So I took my advanced course down there, which was 6 weeks. And after I finished that, I got selected for another course. And that was the Senior Logisticians program. And there was 32 of us that got selected for this program. Intensive, very intensive, as far as anything to do with shipping of supplies, not just class 1, ammunition, fuel, materials. You had to be up on all of it and how to do it in different parts of the world. So out of the 32, I ended up number 6 in the class. And while I was there, they gave me new orders. I was going to Germany again. This time I was going to Heidelberg, which is the headquarters for Europe, called USER headquarters. I was going to the office of the Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics. We call it DESLOG. I was going to be the Class 1 NCO for Europe. So I got home, packed up everything again, went to Germany. Wife went with me, got in the quarters right away. My job entailed, we had 32 issue points throughout Europe, one being in Italy, Vincenza, another one being in Belgium, another one in Holland, and the rest were spread out in Germany. My job, and Deslog was top heavy as far as rank goes. The lowest rank was an E7. The rest of them were officers, all the way up to a 1-star. And they had one for personnel. They had one, like I said, we were in Deslog. They had another one for something else. And they were all headed by a 1-star. And the only spec 4 we had in our whole building was the driver for the general. That's why the rest of us were E7s or above, E7s, E8s, E9s, captains, majors, no lieutenants, captains, majors, and then, of course, civilians, GSs, EGS 14s, 12s, 15s. It's just a big operation. So my job was to oversee all Class 1 operations within the theater of Europe. Big job. But they trained me well as far as especially with the senior logistician course. And the senior logistician course gave me an identifier on my MOS. When I was E5, it's called 76 X-ray. X-ray is class 1. So it was X-ray 30 for a 20 for a E5, 30 for an E6, 76 X-ray 30. And then when I made E7, I was 76 X-ray 40. It just shows higher in rank and stuff. So, but after going through the logistician course, they added a identifier. They dropped a 0 off the 40 and gave me a K identifier, which anybody that looks at records and knows that is a senior logistician for a K identifier. So I did my job for 3 years there, traveled extensively throughout Europe. Some people civilians came over from Fort Lee, Virginia, and wanted to see some of our operations. So I ended up taking them around to different places, went to Belgium, a number of places in Germany, and they wanted to go to Vincenza, Italy. So I set up, we drove from Heidelberg down to Garmisch, which is on the other side of Munich, near the Bavaria. It's in Bavaria, and it's near the Austrian border. And I had set it up where the civilians would go with me and another guy, the military guy that came with them. Instead of driving to Italy, I got us on a helicopter. We flew from Germany to Vincenza, which was up over the mountains, which was great. They had never been in helicopters before. I had been in plenty. And the pilot, when we got near Vincenza, did circles around the Leaning Tower of Pisa so they could take pictures out the window. And so we did our thing there at Italy, and then come back, and they were going somewhere else. So Gail was going to meet me. Wife was going to meet me in Garmisch, which is a great place in Bavaria, and brought the kids. And so what I did was I came back by myself, took a few days leave, and met them in Garmisch, and we spent a couple of days together. Drove to a castle which you've probably seen, probably one of the most famous castles in Germany. It's called Neuschwanstein, called the Fairy Tale Castle. They supposedly King Ludwig built it. It's unbelievable place. But then we spent our time in Germany, and after that, had orders for Fort Hood, Texas. I was going back with the CAV again. So I got a meritorious service medal for my time in Germany. And also while we were in Germany too, my wife and I were foster parents. We foster parented 4 kids while we were there. And the last one we had just kind of turned us off to parenting. It looked like we were going to be adopting again the one of the very small kids. When I say small, uh, Becky, she was only like 6 months old. Mother had gone back to the States. Father was still there, and he was going to, put her up for adoption. And last minute, he changed his mind, and he picked up the baby. So we didn't get to. So that was the last one we had done foster parenting with. So we did 4 kids over the time we were there. So I had orders for Fort Hood, Texas. So got to Fort Hood, and here I was, a calf sandwich. I had a calf patch on both shoulders because I was back with the calf, and I was going to be I was the Class 1 NCO for the first Cav division. So anything to do with Class 1 rations for any kinds of operations that they did, they while I was there, they did trips to what's called NTC, which is Fort Irwin, California. They load up all their armor. In Vietnam, we were all air mobile whenever we were in helicopters and stuff. But when they went to Fort Hood, they rechanged everything. They went to heavy armor. M1 Abram tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles. So they did away, but they did have an Apache brigade, but they weren't air mobile anymore. They were heavy armor. So for training, they'd go to Fort Irwin, California, out in the Mojave Desert area, and guys that were stationed at Fort Irwin, I pity those guys because it's awful out there. You're in the desert. But their job was to act as the opposing force against any forces that put against them. Units from all over the United States would send troops there, and all their vehicles would go too. They'd load all their vehicles up on trains, send them out to California, offload them there to use in the desert against these different scenarios and stuff, and get critiqued, find out what you did wrong, what you did right. But my job was Class 1 again, so my job was to go to the different points, make sure everything was okay, make sure if you needed anything, let me know, we'll get it for you. So I did that. We were out there for about a month and a half. And that happened, rotate a couple times while I was there. So here I was at Hood, back at Hood now, and we were HHC Discom to the division, and that was just more supply people. So my job, got hectic at times, but I could handle it. And here it is now. It's end of 88, beginning of 89, and that's my 19th year. And I come down on orders again. But this time was kind of a really different assignment. It was going to be a hardship tour. In other words, hardship tours you go without your family. I had an assignment for Saudi Arabia, not Korea or back to Germany or something like that. Saudi Arabia to Riyadh. I was, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Here I'm E7. Should I stay any longer or what? I got to the point where I'm getting down there. I was going to be. They were sending me to one more school at Fort Lee because what I was going to do in Riyadh, I was going to run the commissary, which is actually the big military grocery store in Riyadh for a year. But the assignment was a little bit different. I had to go get pictures taken in civilian clothes, and they issued me a diplomatic passport. And in the back of it, it says, the bearer of this passport is on a diplomatic assignment for the government of the United States. And, the whole bit with it was, and I kept this thing because, it's black. It's not like your regular blue ones. And I said, man, I don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. You could put your paperwork in a year before you retired. wife and I discussed it and stuff. Do I stay another year, make E8 when I'm there, or go ahead and get out? Uh, I put my paperwork in. I put my paperwork in, finished out my tour at Fort Hood. Um, I had a lot of leave accrued, but what I did was I we packed up everything from our house and everything that we had because we weren't living in government quarters. We lived in a regular house in near Fort Hood. Packed them all up, drove them back. We had two cars. We had a van and an Escort. Drove them back to here to North Carolina because I knew that's where we were going to settle. Right next door to us, her brother lives with his wife. Um, so we got a piece of land uh, next to them, and that's where we have our house. The So got them settled so the kids could start school and whatnot there. Left the van with them, and I flew back to Fort Hood to finish another couple of months. I had 70 days accrual leave. So I went on what they call terminal leave. I signed out at Fort Hood, got in the Escort, drove home, found a job. I went to work, put resumes out, and I got interviewed for a job, got it right away. At a hosiery plant. The company that I was going to go to work for, they had exclusive. They did other things. They did Kaiser Roth, and other different brand names and stuff. Socks that they make, they dye, package. But their biggest thing was that they had the contract for all the Boy Scout socks in America, Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts.
Wow.
So I worked out there. I got it signed out there. And here I am, a guy in my department. I oversaw the operation of 25 women. I'll tell you, you know, can run troops and that kind of stuff, but 25 women, that was another whole ball game. That was. um, so I worked for them for 18 months. Then the company went bankrupt. They closed the doors one day, and the very next day, um, a friend of the boss that I was working with there asked me if I wanted to come work for him. And he had a builder supply company in Elizabethtown, which is about 17 miles from us. So he hired me there, and I worked for them for 5 years, builder supply, loading trucks, ordering stuff, going to um, hardware type shows. And so I worked for them for 5 years. And I said, man, I got to be doing something else. This concrete is just killing my leg, with my knee has been operated on twice. So I quit there, went to VA. I was 30% disabled for my hearing and my leg when I got out. That's the only I went to VA the one time when I got out. Went to VA and heard about the VOC rehab program. You're disabled vet, you can take a couple tests and figure out what you want to do. My wife was a teacher at the time. She says, you ought to become a teacher. And I said, really? I said, I didn't do so hot in school. You're the one that got me through high school. There were points when it's time when I wanted to quit. I was 19 when I graduated. The So I got into VOC rehab program, took the test and everything else. It came back that you were suited to um, not a nuclear physicist, anything like that, to be a teacher. So I said, okay, that's fine. So what they did was they put me in the VOC rehab program, and what they do is I had a two-year degree from Fort Hood, outside Fort Hood. I had a 2-year degree, but not a 4-year. So I was enrolled in school at University of North Carolina at Pembroke, which is just a branch of their main school, and they put me on a full medical for 2 years, pay my tuition, pay my books, and give me a stipend each month for living. And the thing is, I'm already retired. I'm drawing retirement. Didn't have anything to do with that. And so I went to school at Pembroke and got a degree in history, Bachelor of Arts in History. But I wanted to go into teaching, so I still had to take education credits. But I went ahead and graduated right away with my degree in history, and then come back and finish my other ones up. The speaker at my graduation, when I graduated, was Bill Cosby. He was a friend of the chancellor. So the chancellor asked him if he'd be the um, speaker at our graduation. So I graduated with Bill Cosby there. I put into teaching some several schools in our area. Got called by a teacher at a high school, wanted to know if I'd be interested in teaching a half a year for U.S. history, 11th and 12th grade, for teachers that was on a maternity leave. I said, sure. Well, I went to work there teaching 11th and 12th grade U.S. history. But the way the system works there, you're 4 periods a day, they're hour and a half long. So my first 3 periods, I had different kids. My 4th period was my planning period. I didn't have any kids. So the principal knew that I was still taking classes at Pembroke for my education credits. So he let me leave school at the end of my 3rd period. So a few days a week, I'd go out to Pembroke to work on my education credits. So I did that. And so my half a year was over. The kids, I guess I did all right, because the kids, each class, they all chipped into something. One got me an ice history book, another one got me a plaque, another one got me something else, so it worked out real well.
Yep.
So the second half of the year, there's a middle school in the same area. They had another teacher out on maternity leave. Want to know if I'd be interested in teaching a half year there? I says, okay. And but I was going to be teaching social studies, 7th grade social studies, and 7th grade language arts. So I taught that for half a year. And then I got hired. I put in for another school, which is called Clarkton School Discovery. It's a magnet type school. And I had a year in the classroom already. So I put a letter in and said, look, I got a year in the classroom. Because normally your first year when you go into teaching, you have to do student teaching for a year. I didn't have to do student teaching because I was already in the classroom for a year, 2 different schools. So I went to work out there. I taught 7th grade social studies. Had social study classes during the morning, and every 9 weeks the students would pick 3 electives. So the teachers would pick 2 electives that they wanted to teach, and then they'd have 1 planning period in the day. And so you could write your own, or you could pick from a catalog of ones that had been given at the school before. So I looked over the catalog and I said, man, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that. So I wrote a couple of different programs myself, what I wanted to teach. I taught Star Wars as an elective, character analysis, storyboarding for 9 weeks. The class filled up. I mean, I had other kids wanting to get in, but I couldn't take anymore because the kids go up on one day of the year in the beginning of each 9 weeks and sign up for the classes that they want. But there's only so many in each class of different types. Another teacher would be teaching sign language. Another one would be teaching math remediation. Another one would be teaching something else. So I was teaching Star Wars. I taught CSI as a class. I did a knockoff of an ROTC program. I did public speaking. I did another one called Hot Wheels. They built a scale model kit over the 9 weeks. So my classes tended to fill up really quick because every year I was there, I taught Star Wars at least once a year. And so I taught for 12 years, and I was 61 in June of that year. I'm going to turn 62 in July. So that was going to be my last year teaching. I taught for 12 years, and all you have to do is teach 10 years in order to be eligible for retirement. not as big a retirement as it, for 20 years, but a retirement,
Right.
and you get your medical also. So I put my paperwork in, retired, turned 62 in July, and started my Social Security. I was getting Social Security and my retirement from the state. So I had Medicare, I had whatever the insurance was at the time. Could have been Humana, could have been something else the state had. They changed every 3 years. And so I took another course at the college, the community college. I took an EMT course, emergency medical technician. So I was going to try to, because we had at that time when I first got here, volunteer rescue squads,
Okay.
24 hours a day, rescue squads in different communities be manned by just volunteers. So there were 17 of us that took the course. Then you have to take a state test, a written test, and then a hands-on test. You don't know what they're going to throw at you on the hands-on. It could be CPR of an infant. It could be moving and obstruction. It could be splinting. It could be something else. You never knew. So took the test, took the thing, got my envelope back, passed. The thing is, out of the 17 of us, there was only 2 of us that passed the test. It's a tough test. So I was an EMT for 4 years, and Saturday was my day that I had. So from 6 o'clock Saturday evening to 6 o'clock Sunday morning, that was my 12 hour. So you get calls, you leave your house, go up to the rescue building, and we had 3 ambulances, crash truck, which had everything on the crash truck, which was including inflatables for picking up vehicles and that kind of stuff. And so I did that for 4 years. My leg was really starting to get to me. Wouldn't kneel down sometimes on it. So uh, put in and have a surgery on my leg. The orthopedic surgeon was replaced the knee on my left leg. So I went in for that surgery. Spent 3 days in the hospital, no problem. So I replaced my left leg. Um, I did a lot of different things. I kept busy. I had a small business on the side. I painted military miniatures and did shows and stuff. That kept me pretty busy. Did that for a number of years. And it was the first replacement done was 2003. Come 2012, I had to have my right leg replaced because I was compensating for my left. I had 2 done. 2016 rolls around, I had to have my left one redone again. They put a longer metal shank into it down the leg and stuff. And basically because it wore out. The new ones last for 30, 40 years. The other ones only lasted for 15. So VA and everything else went around with them and stuff. About 3 years ago, got bumped from 30% disability to 70% disability. My hearing was bad. I've got hearing aids in right now. So the well, that's basically what I did when I got out. Went to teaching and kept busy. Then my wife found something about the Stratford Museum, Veterans Museum online, and that's how I'm ended up here.
Well, I'm glad she did. I mean, it it's obvious that your military career impacted your life greatly on the positive side. Obviously a lot of challenges, a lot of hardships for the family, but we really appreciate you now being part of our Stratford family. You grew up here, you graduated high school here, you served your country, and it led you all over the world and led you to settle in North Carolina. And I'm just happy that we had the opportunity to meet today and to get your story so we can be part of our history museum forever. I thank you
Yeah,
and happy birthday.
Thank you.